Hi everyone, my name is Matt, also known as UKAstroNut. In this video I'm going to be talking to you about the closest planet to our very own star, the Sun. And that planet is Mercury. Now, Mercury is the smallest planet in our solar system, and it's also one of the hottest because it's so close to the Sun. It gets so much of the heat and the radiation from the Sun. It's extremely hot. Now, you actually think that being so close to the Sun would actually be the hottest planet in our solar system, but it's not. That's because it's so close to the Sun and it gets so much radiation that the particles and the solar wind from the Sun has actually blown away Mercury's atmosphere. So it has a very thin atmosphere, but nowhere near as much as here on Earth, or even better, on Venus. Now, Venus has a very thick atmosphere, and it's the second closest planet to the Sun. So it's extremely hot because by the sort of greenhouse effects, the atmosphere keeps in all the heat that falls on Mercury, or on Venus, well, at least a lot of the radiation and a lot of the heat. And so Venus is actually the hottest planet in the solar system. Mercury is in the second hottest. So I have this lovely whiteboard here, as I usually do. And here I wrote down the temperatures. The temperature on Mercury goes between minus 170 degrees Celsius to 570 degrees. Now, I told you a minute ago that Mercury is the second hottest planet, which seems strange considering that some of it is minus 170 degrees Celsius. But this is because a day, so the time it takes for Mercury to spin around as it does on Earth, so our day is measured for the time it takes for the Earth to make one entire revolution, one entire spin. Well, on Mercury, here on Earth, it's 24 hours, one day, but a day on Mercury is actually 58 Earth days. So it takes 58 days for Mercury to go all the way around. So that means that one side of the Mercury is basically facing the Sun for sort of half of that time. 29 days, it's just facing the Sun, so it's getting all this heat in and all this radiation, so it becomes really hot. But actually, the other side that isn't facing the Sun becomes very cold because for nearly 29 days in the year, it's not facing the Sun, so it's not getting much heat. So actually, it's very cold on Mercury in some places, but it's also very hot on the side facing the Sun. A year on Mercury, as we know, a year on Earth takes 365 and a quarter Earth days, roughly. But on Earth, it actually only takes 88 days. So the year is defined as the time it takes for the planet to go all the way around the Sun once. So it's actually a much shorter year than we have here on Earth. Now, what is Mercury actually like? Well, physically, at the centre, it has a massive metal iron core. So it has a huge core, a giant ball of iron that makes up the majority of the planet. Then around the outside, it has something called the mantle. And the mantle we have here on Earth as well, but the mantle on Mercury is actually made of things like silicon and silicates and things like that. And on the outside, it has a crust, which is sort of a rock kind of crust around the outside. The crust is very thin. It's kind of comparable to an apple. So the skin on an apple, the thickness of that compared to the rest of the inside, that's kind of what the core is like. What the crust is like. So the surface of Mercury, because it doesn't have an atmosphere. On Earth, we were hit by many asteroids and meteors and things like this here on Earth, which actually made sort of dents and craters and things on the surface of the Earth. However, because we have an atmosphere and we have things like rain and air and wind and things like this, it actually smoothed over all these craters to create sort of a smooth surface, roughly smooth surface on our Earth again. But like on the Moon, which has lots of craters, because Mercury doesn't have an atmosphere, neither does the Moon, it can't sort of wear away all these craters. So the surface of the Moon and Mercury have lots of craters and lots of indents on it, so it looks really kind of scarred. And this is mainly because it doesn't have an atmosphere, so it basically can't smooth over all of those things. Well, because Mercury is very close to the Sun, it's actually very bright most of the time, but because it's so close to the Sun as well when we see it in the sky, it's very hard to see because the Sun is so bright next to Mercury that it almost sort of overwhelms it and sort of drowns it out. But Mercury is actually one of the brightest planets and we can see, and if you can actually see it, it is quite a thing to see. Mercury also is quite unique and it doesn't have a moon as well. The planets in our solar system will have moons apart from Mercury, which doesn't have any. Which is just, for some reason, during formation, when the planets all formed, for some reason, when all the other planets seem to form moons or seem to catch asteroids and things like this to be their moons. Mercury actually didn't, so for some strange reason, in some formation model, it didn't actually form any moons. Now, Mercury, in terms of its distance from the Sun, is about a third the distance of the Sun. So we have the Sun here, Mercury is about here, and again, that distance is around Venus, and another distance there is about Earth. So it's about a third the distance as it is from the Sun as the Earth is. So that's your very quick stop tour of Mercury. I hope you enjoyed. If you haven't checked out my other videos, I've done one on the Sun so far. I'm going to do more videos on the rest of the planets and all the other strange bodies and objects that are in our very own solar system. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon.